I'll never forget the night I realized parking garages are way scarier than haunted houses. This happened when I was 16, after a late basketball practice. The gym was closing up, and most of my team had already left. My car was parked on the third level of this old parking garage downtown. It wasn't the nicest place, cracked concrete, flickering lights, the whole vibe just felt off. But it was cheap parking, so whatever. I remember how quiet it was. You know that kind of silence where your own footsteps sound way too loud? Yeah, it was like that. As I walked to my car, I noticed something weird. There was a red balloon tied to one of the concrete pillars, just kind of swaying a little in the breeze from the vents. I thought it was strange but didn't think too much about it. I mean, maybe some kid left it there. But as I got closer to my car, I started feeling uneasy, like I wasn't alone. That's when I heard it. A faint squeaking sound, like the wheels of a shopping cart or maybe a stroller. It echoed through the garage, but I couldn't see where it was coming from. I stopped and looked around. Nothing. Just shadows and empty rows of parked cars. I told myself to chill. It's just an old building, sounds bounce around. But still, I started walking faster. When I got to my car, I was ready to get out of there. I unlocked it, tossed my bag in the back seat, and just as I reached for the door handle, I saw something in the side mirror. There was a figure standing about 30 feet away, half hidden behind a pillar. At first, I thought maybe it was security or another driver, but then they stepped out, and I saw it was a clown. Yeah, a clown. Full costume, bright colors, white painted face, the whole deal. The clothes looked way too clean, like they didn't belong in a place this dirty. But it wasn't the outfit that freaked me out, it was the face. The smile wasn't happy. It was painted on, but it didn't match the dead expression in its eyes. It was just standing there, staring at me, not moving. I tried to act normal, like I didn't see it. I opened my car door, slid inside, and locked it right away. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the key, trying to start the engine. It sputtered. No big deal, I thought, I'll just try again. But then I noticed the fuel gauge, it said empty. That didn't make sense. I just filled the tank 2 days ago. That's when I heard it. A loud, distorted honk, like one of those old-fashioned clown horns. My stomach dropped. I looked up, and the clown was closer now, standing directly under one of the flickering lights. It didn't move like a normal person, it was too slow, too deliberate. And then it reached into its pocket and pulled out that horn, squeezing it again. The sound echoed through the garage, sharp and eerie. I grabbed my phone, thinking I'd call someone, but there was no signal. Of course, right? At that point, my fight or flight kicked in, and I wasn't about to stick around and see what this clown wanted. I got out of the car and bolted toward the stairwell. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But as soon as I got to the door, I froze. The clown was there, blocking the way. It wasn't running or lunging at me, it just stood there, staring, with that same creepy painted-on smile. In its hand was a balloon, but not like the one I'd seen earlier. This one was twisted into the shape of a dog. A balloon dog. And it wasn't just any balloon dog, it looked exactly like one I'd gotten at a birthday party a few months ago. I panicked and turned, running toward the ramp to the lower level. My sneakers squeaked against the concrete as I ran, but every few seconds, I'd hear that horn again, like it was following me. When I glanced back, the clown wasn't chasing me. It was just walking, slowly, but somehow always closer than it should have been. When I reached the lower level, I thought I'd lost it. I crouched behind a car, trying to catch my breath. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold onto my phone. But then I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was the sound of balloons being twisted. That high-pitched squeak. I peeked out, and there it was, standing a few rows away, twisting another balloon. This time, it wasn't a dog. It was a car. My car. The details were unmistakable, right down to the dent on the side door. The clown held it up, tilted its head, and then started walking toward me again, dragging the balloon along the ground. I knew I had to do something. My eyes scanned the floor, and I saw a piece of rebar lying near a pillar. I grabbed it and stood up. "Stay back!" I shouted, my voice cracking. The clown stopped, tilted its head again, and then dropped the balloon. It backed into the shadows, disappearing behind a column. I didn't wait around to see if it would come back. I sprinted up the ramp, back to my car, and tried the key again. This time, the engine roared to life. I floored it, tearing out of the parking garage without even looking back. To this day, I can't explain what happened. I've never seen that clown again, but sometimes, when I'm alone in a quiet place, I swear I hear that horn. And when I do, I remember the way it looked at me, like it knew me. Like it was waiting for me. You ever feel like something is watching you, even when you know you're alone? That happened to me when I was 12, and I still can't shake it. I've never told anyone this story, but maybe it's time. It's about a clown I'll never forget. It started on a chilly autumn evening. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red, and I was biking home from my friend Ryan's house. I had stayed later than I should have, and my mom always warned me about being out after dark. The quickest way home was the shortcut by the old train tracks. Everyone in town said to avoid it. It was run down, overgrown, and just plain creepy. But I didn't want to take the long way and get yelled at for being late, so I thought, what's the worst that could happen? As I pedaled toward the tracks, the air felt colder, heavier somehow. The sound of my tires crunching on the gravel was the only thing I could hear. Then, under the flickering light of a street lamp near the tracks, I saw it, a figure standing completely still. At first, I couldn't make out what it was. My heart skipped a beat. I slowed down, squinting through the dim light. That's when it stepped forward. It was a clown. Not the happy kind you see at birthday parties, no. This clown's costume was filthy, torn in some places. Its face paint was cracked and peeling, and the smile painted on its face didn't match the blank look in its eyes. It was holding a single red balloon. For a second, I thought, this has to be a prank. Someone dressed up to scare kids. But there was something off, something about how still it stood, how its head tilted slightly, like it was studying me. I tried to act like I wasn't scared. I gripped my bike's handlebars tighter and pedaled faster, telling myself it was just some weirdo and I'd be home in a few minutes. As I passed the clown, it didn't say anything. It just slowly raised one hand and waved. That wave chilled me more than the cold air. It wasn't playful, it was slow, deliberate, like it wanted me to know it was watching me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I kept pedaling, my breath coming out in sharp clouds in front of me. But then I heard it, the sound of footsteps on gravel. Heavy, uneven steps, like someone was limping. My stomach dropped. I risked a glance back. The clown was following me. I pedaled harder, the chain on my bike rattling as I pushed it to its limit. The footsteps grew louder, faster. I could feel the clown closing the distance. My heart pounded in my chest, and every instinct in me screamed to get away. I veered off the path and into the woods, hoping the trees and uneven ground would slow it down. I jumped off my bike and ran, my legs burning as I pushed through the thick underbrush. The woods were darker, quieter, but every so often I'd hear a crunch of leaves or a twig snapping. It was following me. It wasn't yelling or laughing, just moving, always just close enough that I couldn't shake the feeling it was right behind me. Then I heard it, a faint whistle. It sounded like circus music, but it was broken, off tune. I froze, pressing myself against the trunk of a tree, trying to control my breathing. My chest felt tight, my pulse hammering in my ears. The whistle grew louder, closer, and then, silence. I peeked around the tree and saw the clown just a few feet away. It was walking slowly, scanning the woods like it was searching for something, searching for me. Its balloon was gone now, but its hands were empty, and that somehow made it worse. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. Finally, it moved on, disappearing deeper into the woods. I wanted to cry, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I waited until I couldn't hear its steps anymore, then started creeping toward the edge of the woods, where I knew the neighborhood began. The houses weren't far, if I could just make it there, I'd be safe. But as I broke through the trees, my stomach dropped. The clown was standing at the edge of the woods, blocking the path to the neighborhood. It wasn't moving, just staring at me. It reached into its pocket and pulled something out, a long, deflated balloon. Slowly, it twisted it into a shape, a dog. When it was finished, it held the balloon dog up like it was showing me. That's when I realized it looked exactly like the balloon dog I got at a birthday party the week before. My mind raced. How did it know? How could it know? My legs felt like jelly, but I forced myself to move. I had no choice, I had to run past it. Summoning every ounce of courage, I bolted straight toward the clown. It didn't move, but as I passed, I swear I felt its eyes follow me. I didn't stop running until I reached the nearest house. I banged on the door, screaming for help. A porch light flicked on, and a neighbor opened the door, looking confused. I turned back to point at the woods, to show them the clown, but it was gone. All that was left was the balloon dog, lying in the driveway. I never told anyone what happened that night. I avoided the train tracks, the woods, even biking, for a long time. But sometimes, when I'm alone in a quiet place, I swear I hear that faint whistle again. And every time, I wonder if the clown is still out there, waiting for me. I'll never forget the day I got lost in that corn maze. It wasn't supposed to be scary. It was just a fall festival, something my family did every year. Hayrides, caramel apples, pumpkin picking, all the normal stuff. But this maze? It turned into something I'll never forget. Something I wish I could forget. It started out fun. The maze was huge, way bigger than the ones I'd done before. The corn stalks were taller than my dad, maybe 8 feet high. You couldn't see over them, and they were packed so close together you couldn't even peek through. My parents let me go in by myself. They were hanging out by the food stands and told me to come back in half an hour. I felt proud, like I was grown up enough to explore on my own. If only I had known what was waiting for me. At first, it was awesome. The paths twisted and turned, and I felt like I was in some kind of adventure movie. The corn smelled earthy and kind of sweet, and the only sounds were my sneakers crunching on the dirt path and the wind rattling the stalks. I'd run into a few other kids, and we'd laugh about how lost we were before going in different directions. Everything was fine. Normal. But then I started to notice something weird. At one of the intersections, there was this scarecrow. Except it wasn't like a regular scarecrow with old overalls and a floppy hat. This one was dressed as a clown. It had bright red hair, a big ruffled collar, and a painted smile that was too wide. Its white face paint was cracked, like it had been out in the weather too long. Its eyes weren't painted, though. They were plastic, like doll eyes, shiny and blank. It was creepy, but I told myself it was just part of the festival. Someone must have thought it was funny to put a clown in the maze. I tried to laugh it off and kept walking. That's when I heard it. A giggle. Not a kid's giggle, though. It was high-pitched, like someone trying too hard to sound happy. I froze. It came from somewhere behind me, but when I turned around, there was no one there. I told myself it was just another kid, maybe one of the ones I'd passed earlier. But the maze was quiet now. Too quiet. I kept walking, faster this time. I wanted to get out. I figured if I just kept turning right, I'd find the exit eventually. That's what my dad always said about mazes. But as I walked, I started seeing things that didn't make sense. A red balloon tied to a stalk here, another one there. It felt like they were marking where I'd been, but I hadn't put them there. Someone else had. Someone was leaving them for me to find. Then I saw it. The clown scarecrow. Again. But this time, it wasn't standing by the intersection where I'd seen it before. It was in the middle of the path, blocking my way. Its head was tilted to the side, and its hands were reaching out, like it wanted me to come closer. I stared at it, my heart pounding so loud I could feel it in my ears. I didn't know how it had gotten there, but I wasn't about to stick around to find out. I turned and ran. I didn't care about turning right or finding the exit anymore. I just needed to get away. The giggling started again, louder this time, and it was coming from everywhere. I kept looking over my shoulder, and every time I did, I thought I saw something moving through the corn. Just flashes of red and white, like the clown's costume. It was following me. I was sure of it now. I hit a dead end. The path just stopped, and the corn was too thick to push through. I was trapped. I spun around, hoping I'd lost it, but there it was. The clown. It was closer than ever, standing at the entrance to the dead end. It wasn't a scarecrow anymore. It was moving. Its steps were slow and uneven, like it didn't know how to walk right. It reached into its pocket and pulled out a long, thin balloon. Then it started twisting it, squeaking and creaking as it made shapes. It wasn't until it was done that I realized what it was, a balloon dog. Just like the one I'd gotten at the festival earlier. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I looked around and spotted a hole near the ground, hidden by the stalks. It looked like a drainage pipe or something. It was small, but I thought I could squeeze through. The clown was getting closer, its face still frozen in that horrible smile. I didn't have time to think. I dove into the hole and crawled as fast as I could. The pipe scraped my elbows and knees, but I didn't care. I just kept going until I saw the light at the other end. When I crawled out, I was in a field next to the maze. I ran straight back to the festival, crying and shaking. I found my parents, but I didn't tell them what happened. I didn't think they'd believe me. They just thought I was scared because I got lost. But I know what I saw. And sometimes, late at night, when it's quiet, I swear I can still hear that giggle. I'll never go near a corn maze again. Never.